Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today I have a very special kind of video for you. Remember that video I uploaded where I introduced a special segment that I wanted to do on my channel called Storytime? Well, probably not, because that was like 7 months ago or something. But I am finally here with my first video in this segment. For detailed information, I will leave the introduction video in the description box down below, but just to quickly summarize it, in this segment Storytime, I would like to tell you about my favorite stories and legends that come from my home city, Vienna. This first episode of Storytime is going to be all about why the North Tower of St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna was never finished. A little disclaimer before I start. I could not find any English versions of the Viennese legends, so I had to translate it myself. And well, I am not exactly a storyteller, so it might not be as smooth as I would like it to be. And also, before I get started with the actual story, I would like to take you through Vienna with me and just tell you a few of the dry facts around St. Stephen's Cathedral. If you are not interested in those, jump right ahead to here. So let's get going. Austria is a Roman Catholic country and St. Stephen's Cathedral is its main church. It is also one of the main sites, as well as, I guess I could say, symbols of the city of Vienna. Especially the multicolored tiled roof is pretty famous for a church, and it was at the time that it was built one of the biggest churches. But before St. Stephen's Cathedral was built, there were two other churches at the same place. The first was built between 1137 and 1147, and there was just a small parish church just outside the city walls. Which is just crazy to imagine, because today St. Stephen's Cathedral is like right in the center of Vienna, so that then it was outside the city walls, it's just how small was Vienna. That church was replaced by another one in a Romanesque style that was built between 1230 and 1245, and I think especially in the western part of St. Stephen's Cathedral, like the walls are still the same as that Romanesque church. The Habsburger added to that Romanesque church until we get what is now St. Stephen's Cathedral. And that was done between 1304 and the adding was stopped in 1511. St. Stephen was turned from a church into a cathedral in 1469 when Vienna was established as a diocese, I don't know how you pronounce it. Next to the entry of the St. Stephen's Cathedral, there are these metal bars, and I think that's quite an interesting story actually. And those bars were, for example, when the people bought cloth at the market in the Middle Ages, they could go there and look if it was like the right length, and if it wasn't, then they could like go to the Duke or something and complain. St. Stephen's Cathedral has 4 towers. There are the twin towers that are next to the entry. There is the South Tower, which is 136 meters high or 446 feet for those of you who don't follow the metric system, and the North Tower, which is 68 meters or 223 feet. And of course that is what we are talking about today, because the North Tower was supposed to be a twin to the South Tower, but it has half the height. So this story is all about why it is only half the height. That is all the facts that I wanted to tell you about St. Stephen's Cathedral. I will now begin with the story. I read a few versions of the story that I'm going to tell you right now, but the one that I'm mostly basing my translation on is this one. It's Die schönsten Sagen aus Wien, or the most beautiful legends from Vienna, and it's written by Wolfgang Morsche and Berit Brugalska. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Just so you know, it's not all completely from my memory, although I could probably do that because I love that story. Let's get started. So in the Middle Ages, I guess it would be around the 15th century, at the end of the 15th century, The works on the Vienna St. Stephen's Cathedral were almost finished. The south tower was majestic and high and unlike anything the people of Vienna had ever seen before. Of course, the main part of the cathedral had already been built, and the only thing left to finish was the north tower. So the magistrate, or whoever was in charge back then, decided that this work should be given to a master stonemason who would finish it in the shortest amount of time and with the lowest costs involved. One of the stonemasons who said, "I want to do it," was the master mason Hans Buchsbaum. By finishing the North Tower, he hoped to impress the father of his love, Mary. Mary was a girl who came from a wealthy family. Hans Buchsbaum, not so much, so really his only possibility to ever hope to marry her was to finish the North Tower. And so he said, "I will finish it in half the time that anyone else will finish it." And the people believed him, so he was told, "Go and finish the North Tower of our cathedral." They started building, the materials were ordered, and everything seemed fine. But then the first problems started. The calculations of the building weren't as exact as they should be. The delivery of the materials took too long. It got worse and worse, and Buchsbaum noticed that he wouldn't be able to finish the tower in time. He often stood in front of the tower late at night and thought about, how am I going to finish it? How will I manage? And suddenly, one evening, as he was thinking and just frustrated, a little man stood next to him and he said, "I know of your problems." And Hans Buchsbaum asked, "Who are you and what do you want from me?" And the little man said, "Who else could I be except for the devil? And I am everywhere where there are people who cannot do things on their own, and I want to help you finish the tower in time." And Buchsbaum was aggravated. He said, "Who do you think I am that I would give you my soul just like that? I will not be swayed by your arguments and I do not need your help." And at that the devil grinned at him and said, "Well, what would you say if we added something to the contract? If you manage not to say the name of the Lord, the Virgin Mary or any of the saints until the tower is finished, I will let you go. If you do not, your soul is mine." And young Master Buchsbaum thought, well, that's easy. That's not difficult. And so he shook the devil's hand and sealed the deal. And from that day on, the work was as easy as before. The building went on and it couldn't be faster. And so Master Buchsbaum was sitting on the top of the tower. He was looking at some of the work, and then below he saw his love go by. She stopped and looked around her as if searching for something. And Master Buchsbaum thought, "I'm sure she wants to talk to me." And so he shouted down, "Mary, Mary, I'm up here." And at that moment the tower started to shake. He lost his balance, and together with the whole tower, he fell. Clouds of dust hung over the whole place, over the whole church, and in all of Vienna this really malicious laugh could be heard. And some people who were near St. Stephen's Cathedral could see a small devilish being running past and getting something from between the stones. And after this horrible misfortune, the city thought it'd be better to stop building on the St. Stephen's Cathedral and the North Tower. They searched underneath the fallen stones, but they couldn't find the corpse of Master Hans Buchsbaum. And that is the story, or at least one of the stories, why the North Tower of St. Stephen's Cathedral was never finished. There are of course a lot of other stories surrounding the North Tower. Truth is, the whole cathedral was built in a Gothic style, but the North Tower wasn't finished when the Gothic period came to its end, and so they just put a Renaissance top on it and said, okay, that's it. We don't need any more. This story is just one of the many examples where the devil plays a central role in Viennese history. And I think that it's very interesting because at least half the stories that play in Vienna have the devil as a central part. and the other half has death. And we are people who just love the macabre, so luckily the devil didn't actually build anything on the St. Stephen's Cathedral, because everything that he built came down after Hans Buxbaum yelled the name of Mary. But it's just one story that tells you you can't win against the devil, so don't even try it. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed this story. Tell me, do you know any stories with the devil? And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. I have all the links to my social media in the description box down below. And I hope I'll see you guys soon. Kiss kiss!